lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the
Good morning
party.
and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. How are you this morning? It's damn chilly outside, isn't it? Make sure that you're wrapped up well today and I hope you don't get too much snow. Anyway, there's lots to talk about this morning with regards to Celtic. There's Greg Taylor. There is the game coming up this weekend. Should we be wary of Hearts? Should we be wary of Hearts this weekend? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. I mean, when you look at the Hearts scores over the last couple of weeks, I think that the Hearts game's the last thing that's really on Celtic's mind. It's another game that we must win in the league to maintain our position at the top of the table. But I think the big game that every Celtic player and every Celtic fan will definitely be looking at will be the game a week on Wednesday at Celtic Park. Yes, Club Brugge come to Celtic Park. And it's a game that Celtic will think that, well, we think that we can win when we look at the Champions League, but that's for next week. We could talk about that then. We could talk about that getting closer to the weekend, and once we've seen off Hearts at a late kick-off on a Saturday night. Yes, a late kick-off on Saturday. Tell me how you feel in the comment section about a late kick-off away at Hearts. I mean, there is the reduced allocation. It would be interesting to see if they ever did a late kick-off at Celtic Park, because I know that there's buses come from all over the place for Celtic, and it would be strange because a lot of them would miss the last ferries, I think, but I don't know, I'm not sure. Anyway, let's get on with the Celtic news this morning. Motherwell star, who has been linked with Celtic, we're going to talk about him before we talk about the Greg Taylor situation, but Lee Miller has been talking about his son Lennon and been talking to PLZ's Soccer, allegedly. It says, and Lee said, his dad says that he's not interested in going anywhere else right now in terms of he wants to rack up as many games as possible, which you can understand, because if he goes to the likes of Celtic, he's not going to be playing first team football, so you can understand why he wants to stay at Motherwell and just get as many games under his belt as possible, rather than go to a team and then sit on the bench, because I mean, he's not going to walk straight into the Celtic first team, is he? He's not interested in going anywhere else right now, said his dad. He wants to rack up as many games as possible. Yeah, the time will come when he wants to play at a higher level. And is that higher level at Celtic? And would that be ambitious enough for him? Or does he mean the likes of the English Premiership or something? Or does he just mean getting to a club that will get him in the Champions League and get him into the Scotland squad? Things like that. Who knows? But I go through different scenarios with Lennon all the time, he said. Think if this happened and then if that happened, different situations. He's got ambition. He's got massive ambition. He wants to be a Scotland international and play at the highest level. The way he's going, he will do that. He's in no rush for it, and he understands that well. And I think, and I can see the similarities to my cousin's son, who's currently at another club in Scotland, and he's been with them for 8 years, and he's just signed his first agent. And it's interesting to watch the process when the younger players actually go through that and they get into it. So, but Miller has been heavily linked with Celtic, and it appears to be some hesitation amongst the support, given how David Turnbull's... I don't know who's saying that. Is there really a hesitation between the Celtic fans? I think Lennon Miller is a completely different player from Turnbull. He's definitely younger, but I mean, we've done not bad with ex-Motherwell players in the past. And let's remember that we sold David Turnbull for £3 million with only 6 months left on his contract. I mean, Celtic could have got more for him if we'd sold him earlier on, but it was not to be. And there's another player who could be in a similar situation in just over a month's time, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So Lennon goes on to say that people are sceptical on how I don't believe that at all. Tell me in the comments if you are. But Celtic paid £4.5 million for the midfielder back in the day, and there was a feeling that he never lived up to the promise. And they said it was a £2 million move. It was a £3 million move in January. But anyway, it is what it is. It goes on to say that many people on social media, well, I'm not going to listen to social media, I'm going to listen to the likes of Brendan Rodgers, and if it does happen, I mean, you have to think about it as well, I suppose. You look at the midfield, we've brought in Paulo Bernardo, we've Luke McCowan, all fighting for minutes. If you're going to bring in the likes of Lennon Miller, where does he fit into the team? Well, it's obvious that Celtic are going to sell Rio Hatate at some point in the future. And then we'll need backup in that midfield position. To think that we're going to hold on to the likes of Rio Hatate for another couple of seasons is just It's fanciful stuff. We know that every single player at Celtic that comes in has a lifetime span, and the club will have to maximise their potential return on the investment that they made on any player. And I think this summer will be that summer for Rio Hatate. Rio Hatate is a player that has publicly says when back home in Japan that he wants to play at a higher level, a bit like Lennon Miller saying that he wants to play at a higher level. Will that higher level just be in the Champions League for Lennon Miller, or will he ultimately want to play at a better league? His dad seems to be saying that he wants to play at the highest level, and we'll see where it goes. It could be the fact that he goes to Serie A, like a lot of other Scottish young talents, and could he be... I think that if Celtic are going to make their move, I think that there's a lot of people that I'm seeing on social media, I don't know if Celtic on YouTube anyway, are definitely saying, look, get the boy in, get him in, and pay the money at this transfer window, loan him back to Motherwell so he keeps on getting the game time. Don't bring him to Celtic to sit on the bench. Put him back to Motherwell where he keeps on getting the game time. He keeps on progressing. That way Celtic can keep a good eye on him as well, because he's in the Scottish League. And we'll see how he progresses as a player. And then, because we've done the deal early, and then comes in and gets a fantastic pre-season with Celtic, because Brendan Rodgers always goes on about that, getting the players in early, so that he has them at the beginning of pre-season, so he can work with the players. And I think that this may be the turning point. Remember, we've only got one more summer, potentially, of Brendan Rodgers. We need to start talking about this, because as we come up to this transfer window, when it gets to the summer, Brendan Rodgers has only got 1 year left on his contract. And if we don't start getting the players in, I suggest now, in the winter transfer window, are the board going to really fire out big amounts of cash with the knowledge that Brendan can walk away for nothing within a year later? I think it's imperative, if we are doing well and we have achieved our target of the treble this season, if we do achieve that, and if we also achieve last 16, say, or even the knockout phase of the extra 2 games in the Champions League, that will be a success in my eyes. I said that, listen, then 12 points would be a massive achievement for Celtic this year in the Champions League. And we need to really start asking the question, what is Brendan Rodgers' long-term plans? And Brendan will say, look, we've got a long time to think about that. But realistically, we all know what happened the last time at Celtic when Brendan Rodgers told the board he was going to leave in the summer. The board got rid of him just like that. And they took the first £11 million or whatever it was that came in from Leicester. But we don't want to think about the negatives. We want to think about the positives in the way that Brendan Rodgers is building this team. Now, the fact that we've brought in Paul Tisdale to the position of head of football department to back up Brendan Rodgers as the go-between Brendan and the board, someone that is a football mind and not just monetary. I think that it's imperative that when we look at the bigger picture, Brendan will want to get his players in the next window, with potentially bringing them in the summer. That's just my thinking behind it. It makes good business sense, and then it also tells Brendan that, you know, there is a long-term future after next year. But anyway, young Miller, he is one for the future, as they say. Could he replace Callum McGregor? Matt O'Reilly left. You know, the manager does like good attacking midfield players. The fact that he's still young, we could get him in at Celtic. He could be here for 4 or 5 years and he could do absolutely fantastic. But anyway, you never know. Right, let's get to the Greg Taylor situation, shall we? I've been rabbiting on for a bit now. The Greg Taylor situation is one that troubles some Celtic fans, and other ones are saying just let him go. He has been linked with the Middlesbrough. And as the publication came out, it said Middlesbrough must try and capitalise on Celtic's contract uncertainty. And we all know the position that Greg Taylor is in. His contract is up. He's not been offered a new contract, or he maybe wasn't. It was turned down. We don't know the ins and outs, but it was said at the beginning of the summer that he wasn't offered a new contract. I'm sure Brendan Rodgers has. Well, we all know that Brendan Rodgers has come out publicly and says, "Look, we want Greg to stay." So there has been some kind of talks went on in the background. Brendan Rodgers spoke about the fact that Greg, his missus, is due a kid, so they want him to be settled, they want him to be financially stable and all the rest of it, and thinking about the future so that his mind's on football and not, you know, I need to get a new contract, I've got a kid now and this and that. Brendan Rodgers has come out and said that, but if he has not signed a new contract, within the next month and 2 weeks. Unfortunately for Greg, he'll be put on the transfer list in January, and Celtic will want to recoup as much money as they can for the player. We did it with Turnbull last summer, so don't be surprised if it is the same situation with Greg Taylor. Now, Middlesbrough have, there's a publication saying that Middlesbrough January transfer plans should include Greg Taylor. They're going about the fact that they have a Brazilian first choice. How does this sound familiar? They have a Brazilian first choice who has the talent but doesn't convince. A bit like a player that we have playing in Brazil at the moment, who is a Celtic player who's on loan to a Brazilian club, and there's currently 2 or 3 clubs interested in our Argentinian player. And if Celtic do go on to sell him and Greg Taylor, they need to go out and spend some decent money on bringing in a left back. There's a lot of people sitting thinking, could this be the time for the one and only Kieran Tierney talk to re-emerge? And I think it's already re-emerged across social media, and everyone knows that he needs to get fit. He's not in the plans of Arsenal, and they will want to recoup as much money as they can for him in the summer. So it's going to be an interesting time with Greg Taylor's uncertain future at Celtic Park. The Scotland international has been a key figure for Celtic over the years. He's a player that everyone wanted chased out the club when Ange Postecoglou walked into the door, and every Celtic fan to a man wanted rid of Greg Taylor back then. But Ange Postecoglou turned him around as a player, and he's been a first choice pick for many, many games now, for a couple of seasons in fact. But he does have little Greg Taylor moments, and I think he's a fantastic player. I'd love him to stay. I think that if we do sell him, if he does leave, we need to bring in another Scottish player for the Scottish contingent for UEFA quota. Maybe that's why they are going for Lennon Miller. But will Lennon Miller be happy enough? He's not going to sit on the bench. We know this. He's not going to be happy with doing that at all. So that could throw a spanner into the works. And is there a Scottish left back out there that we can go and get in the current climate? It's all pointing to the one person, isn't it? Anyway, tell me what you think about the Greg Taylor situation. This one will roll on. I mean, I make no apologise about talking about this, because we all know the situation with Greg Taylor. We know the situation with Alexandro Bernabe. He was brought into Celtic to replace Greg Taylor, and we spent good money on him. Celtic allegedly value him at a ridiculous amount of money, but if they think that they're going to double their money on Alexandro Bernabe, if we get in a couple of million, even 3 million for Greg Taylor, surely that gives us the money to then go out and spend 8, 9, 10 million on a decent left back, don't you think? And I mean, the big game this weekend is obviously Hearts. When you look at the results that Hearts have had over the last couple of weeks, the only significant win that they've really had is been over St Johnstone. Other than that, they had a derby draw. They won in Europe. They beat St Mirren 4-0. At their home ground. They won a European game at their home ground, but they've had a lot of draws, and they're sitting at the bottom of the table, well, just above. They're sitting in the relegation zone. Let's hope that they do get relegated. The last game, they only managed to get beat 1-0 by the Ibrox club. Should Celtic fear them this weekend, or will it be? Well, we all know that Hearts, the only time that they turn up in a season is when Celtic come calling. And it is that stupid reduced allocation that they've given Celtic. And I just think that because they've given that reduced allocation, I think that I want the worst for that club, and I hope that they do get relegated. It'd be fantastic for us if Hearts got relegated, so as far as I'm concerned. It's called karma. But anyway, we will be live at 8 p.m. tonight. We can talk about any Celtic news that is kicking around. There's not so much today because it is international break. The players will be coming back bit by bit this week, and I think that they'll start back full time on with the manager on Wednesday. I'm not too sure, but the manager will be wanting to assess all the players and get them all ready for the game at the weekend. With Nico Kuhn getting ready to be called up to the German squad, all eyes will be on him. He's the big star of the moment, who will be sold in the winter transfer window. Maybe we should talk about that tonight, but I don't know. I'll put the link up for the live early on, so you can all jump on the comments section, and then we might even do an early poll. What can we have a poll about tonight? Tell me in the comment section. Anyway, on that note, I hope you have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world. Well, let me see if I can remember how to do this right. There we go.
Roll up to